Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Spiritual Transformer. And my name is Randy Koo, and I will be your host for today. So, I always like to start off by saying thank you. Thank you very much for everybody who's watched my previous videos and gave a like or subscribe. Again, thank you very much. So, let's begin. A couple of videos ago, 2 videos ago, I spoke about the concept of forgiveness. So today, I'm going to speak about, I guess, the other half or the other side of forgiveness, which is apologies. So, yeah, they seem to be the opposite of each other. One of them is about forgiving something that others have done to you, and apologies is well, about what we do to others. But the one commonality I find between the two of them is that apologies, just like forgiveness, is more something that you do for yourself than for the other person. So I'm once again going to give some examples from my own experiences, but before I do that, I just want to come clean. When it comes to the topic of, I guess, either forgiveness or apologies, I'm still very much a work in progress. So, what that means is that I'm human, I make mistakes, I talk a good talk, but I don't always walk the walk. So, just keep that in mind because if you were, well, actually, I did. I asked my wife if I've ever done anything for which I did not adequately apologize for, and she said yes. Yeah, there are times when even my apologies are bad. So whatever I say today, just take it with a grain of salt, right? Because like I always like to say, we're all walking this spiritual path. So I'm still on my journey. So that's it. And another thing about these examples I'm about to give is that they might seem small, but I also think that, starting small is no big deal. We don't always have to make Herculean, you know, tasks out of forgiving or apologizing. So, well, I might as well start. So, when I say apologies working for us, I like to give an example. So, a few weeks ago, I was down at the bank. I wanted to ask a question and I want to check on something. And while I was there, I noticed what I thought was a discrepancy. Yeah, discrepancies at banks, you don't want that, right? So I was rightfully concerned and I told the person that, hey, I think there's something missing here. And then they took it seriously enough to call the manager over. And I'm grateful for that. And we we had a civil discussion, okay? So this isn't like one of those situations where tempers were flared and names were called. Nothing like that. It was all really very civil between me and the bank. So the manager came and told me that, yeah, the procedures are, they're somewhat airtight and that the discrepancy I've noticed shouldn't have happened. And he told me to take a step back, review what I know, and maybe I'm missing something, right? So yeah, I did that. In fact, me and my wife got together and we hashed it out. So it turned out that yes, it was my memory, my faulty memory, that is, that caused the discrepancy. There was no discrepancy. It was just all in my head, quite literally. So obviously, I'm not. Well, for me, I made a mistake and I felt bad, right? But I'm not gonna go all the way down to the bank and pull the teller and the manager and say, "Yo, man, I'm really sorry," right? That's a little crazy. Maybe they appreciate it, but like I said, everything is all civil, and I'm almost certain that the people who worked at the bank they've forgotten about this by now. But I would always remember because it's kind of my fault, and I felt guilty, So what I did was that during my meditation that night, I sent out my apologies energetically during my meditation, right? So I just closed my eyes, took a few deep breaths, and I said, you know, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. And I repeated that over and over until I guess you can say I got over my guilt. And right now, when I think about the incident, well, I don't feel anything. Like, it doesn't bother me. It's been a learning experience. So yeah, like I said, that was a pretty small thing, right? No shouting, no name calling, but I still felt kind of bad because I kind of wasted someone else's time. Maybe that's just me, but that's why I think apologies are important, because all these little things, they build up. All these little guilt, they kind of build up if you do too many rough things and you don't apologize for it, even if it's just, during meditation, like energetically, you don't really have to go back to the other person. That sort of clears the air for me, right? Because I have no idea how the bank people felt. It's just all for me. There are other instances in my life where I have to do something similar, but mostly the thing that, well, pisses me off to get me to go unhinged is a lot of times that happens for work. And I'm sure a lot of people may have something in common with this, but sometimes work, they just push your buttons in such a way. And I'm the kind of guy who I can't really repress my emotions, and I really don't think I should. In fact, I don't even want to. So when something gets unhinged at work, I tend to get stiff. I tend to get very blunt. I tend to get very hard, and I let the other person have it. Like, this is work, so no name calling, no swearing. Okay, maybe some swearing gets into it, but no name calling, all respectful, but really blunt shit, right? So this happened once when I was in a meeting with a group of people, and they asked me a question, right? They asked me if a certain mistake, how would I have prevented a certain mistake, right? And I said, well, if this person's team was better trained, we wouldn't have this mistake. Yeah, I said that, like, right in front of everybody. So clearly I felt bad about it afterwards. Look, I'm gonna admit it and say I don't think I said anything wrong. I maybe not have said it in a right way. So what I actually did was that I went to that person's cubicle after and I said, "Hey, listen, I'm sorry. I said that your team isn't very well trained in a meeting, and look, I just want to apologize for that." And the person just pulled me aside, asked me to sit down. We had a really great chat afterwards. I don't even think it's about what we talked about in that meeting. It's just like we clear the air, right? And it felt great. I mean, no guilt, no repressed emotions, no nothing. You know, at work professionally, you see these people every day. So not apologizing is just, I think it could hinder future professional, well, collaboration, right? So I think, well, I guess in this case, apologies work for me and the other person because we managed to hash it out. And this happens over and over again at my work. Like, I would just get blunt. I would just get like, oh, stabby, and I would just let the other person have it and to say what's on my mind. And that has caused me issues. But there are times when I would do the same thing. I would apologize. And, to my surprise, sometimes the other person isn't even offended. Like this example I gave about, speaking bad about somebody else's team. She told me that she didn't even said she was offended, but I think she just maybe appreciated the gesture. And we had a nice chat afterwards. And I find that gets repeated a lot. These days, you know, don't always have to talk in person, right? So, on Microsoft Teams, I just go, hey, listen, man, I'm sorry for being so blunt, during that meeting or whatever. And then the other person's like, yeah, no problem. I understand. If I was in your situation, I'd do the same thing. It's crazy how responsive other people are to a good apology, a heartfelt one, and sometimes they're not even offended. So this is kind of what I mean when I say that apologies and forgiveness is done more for your own benefit sometimes than other people. Of course, apologies, if you trespass against someone, apologies will help the other person clear the air as well, and that's what I've seen, but I think it's mostly for the person making the apology, just so they can get it out of their system. Because, like forgiveness, the person you trespassed on might not even think it's a trespass. They might not even think about you at all. So all the guilt, all the repressed emotions is on me, right? The person making the apology. So I find it really helpful to just get it out there. And I know in my last video I said something like that. I don't really have any office politics or backstabbing or anything in a professional sense, and maybe that's why. Maybe because I manage to clear the air with enough people that people don't think about, I guess, reciprocating. You know what I mean? I say something bad to them, they say something bad to me, but I've never seen that in my office, in my professional experience. Maybe I'm lucky, or maybe I just learn when to say sorry, right? And there are times when I don't apologize, like either through my meditation and energetically, when I don't even apologize to the other person. And of course, there are times when I don't apologize at all to the other person or energetically. And I find that those times, they weigh on me. Like sometimes when I say something bad to an office coworker and I don't do an apologies or anything, it weighs on me for days, like bloody days. It's just ridiculous. I don't really understand sometimes. Sure, I might have been blunt on an email or whatever, but does it really bother me so much? Yeah, it bloody hell does. Yeah, I can't really fathom it. It's like, I guess a part of it is just what the other person thinks, right? Like if I apologize to someone, they say, yeah, it's okay. That chances are they really do think it's okay, and that really wasn't a problem. But if you never clear the air, my mind just goes back to the incident and go, oh my God, what does that person think about me? Are they going to give me a hard time later on? Like, oh man, maybe I shouldn't have done that, over and over again in my head. And it takes days to clear, days to clear. Now that I've started meditating, I can release it in the night. All I gotta do is just meditate, close my eyes, and picture the other person and say, I'm sorry, please forgive me. I love you, thank you. And if that doesn't work, and the next day the feeling of guilt comes back, I do it again. So it's really all for me. Now, I mentioned guilt a lot, and I think it's because that's really what it comes down to. I think human beings are vulnerable to guilt, and they may impact our image of our own self-worth. I'm sure I'm not the only person who feels guilty about things before I clear them, right? So I find that apologies are a good way to decrease the amount of guilt. But speaking of guilt, I actually don't feel very many guilt. Because even if I don't apologize, eventually the guilt goes away. I guess one of the things about having an awakening about 20 years ago is that I've got 20 years of practice, one way or another, to get to a state of, I guess, inner harmony, maybe. I still get disturbed a lot, but when it comes to guilt, I actually don't have any. Like even right now, I don't feel guilty about anything, and that might be bad. I mean, if you ask my wife, she'll probably say you should really feel guilty about some stuff, but I'm not sure. If you're watching this, honey, let me know. So, yeah, I don't feel much guilt. I really don't. Maybe it's just because apology helps, but I try not to let guilt pile up, right? And so I don't feel a lot. And on the other end, I also don't feel much regret either. So it's a little weird, but having 20 years of practice, inner peace might have something to do with it. But this is where I this is where I do some parting words, I guess you can say. So I've talked about forgiveness. I've talked about apologies. And at the end of the day, and maybe this is why I don't feel much guilt or regret in my own life, is because at the end of the day, the person who needs the forgiveness, the person who needs the apology most, is actually us. You, me. The key is to turn that forgiveness and forgive yourself. And if you think you did something wrong to yourself, you apologize to yourself. Right? I really think that's key. So I talked about all my examples are with other people, but I think it's time to say that the most important person to practice forgiveness and apologies on is yourself. Me, you, everybody. We need to go look ourselves in the eye. If we can look, I know looking myself in the eye can sometimes be a challenge, but if we can look ourselves in the eye in the mirror and say, I forgive you. I apologize for all the bad things I did to you, and I love you. It's a challenge, but I think that's where apologies and forgiveness ultimately leads to. Because if you forgive other people, if you apologize to other people, it's all well and good, but if you never turn that inward, if you never do the same for yourself, then everything's just going to build up. All the guilt, all the regrets, all the emotions is going to stay pent up. You have to let it go. And I think that's the key to inner peace, inner harmony, is just to let this shit go. And the way I think the best way to do it is to forgive ourselves and to apologize to ourselves for things that we think we did against ourselves, and just to love ourselves more. And then that'll lead to us thinking that we're more worthy. Promote self-confidence. That kind of thing. So yeah, I think I've covered everything for these two topics. So, if you like the message, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. You know the drill. And my name is Randy Koo, and this has been another episode of The Spiritual Transformer. So, that's it. Goodbye, and I'll see you next time.